Dr. Muso. Today I want to talk about the Land Apportionment Act of 1930. In 1930, the whites had to apportion the land. They had to divide the land into the land that was going to be owned by the Africans and also the land that was going to be owned by the whites. So they had to apportion this land in 1930. So we want to look on the reasons why they had to do that in 1930. So we discover that the Land Apportionment Act of 1930, it was necessitated by the need to promote the agriculture that was being practiced by the whites in southern Rhodesia. They wanted the whites in southern Rhodesia to maximize on the profits that they were getting on the lands that they were using. So they wanted to increase those lands that they were owning. So we discover that in southern Rhodesia, there was about 96 million acres of land. From this 96 million acres of land, 49 million acres of land, it was given to the whites, despite the fact that the whites were not the majority in southern Rhodesia. The 21 million acres of land, it was given to the Africans, despite the Africans being the majority in the country. So the land that was given to the Africans, it was not enough, it was not adequate. Then the remaining land, it was allocated, it was to be given to the unborn children of the settlers or unborn children of the whites. Now, let's now move on and talk about the influence that led or that brought about this Land Apportionment Act of 1930. Number one, the Land Apportionment Act, it was influenced by the Morris-Carter Commission of 1925. This Morris-Carter Commission, it advocated for the separation of land into the white-owned land and also into the African-owned land. So this influenced the Land Apportionment Act of 1930, the Morris-Carter Commission. Number two, the Land Apportionment Act, it was influenced by the need to reduce competition between the blacks and also the settlers or the whites. The whites did not want to continue competing with the Africans. So to avoid that competition now, they had to introduce this law, which was called the Land Apportionment Act of 1930. Another issue was that the whites wanted to get a cheap labor. Where were they going to get labor? It meant that they were supposed to take as many lands as possible from the Africans. By so doing now, Africans, they were going to render themselves to the whites. They were going to work for them at their mines and also our farms. So the Land Apportionment Act, it was necessitated by the need to get a cheap labor. They also wanted to promote the settlers' interest. They wanted to promote their interest. Which interest did they want to promote? Making sure that they had adequate labor, making sure that they were going to maximize on the profits that they were going to get from those lands. They also wanted to impoverish the Africans. They wanted the Africans to suffer. They wanted to bring hardships to the Africans. These hardships, they were going to force the Africans to leave, to abandon their areas and seek for employment at their workplaces. So the Land Apportionment Act, it was done to impoverish the Africans. It was also done so that they can reserve land for their unborn children. They were preparing wealth for their unborn children. Lastly, the Land Apportionment Act, it was also done to destroy African agriculture and improve the settlers' agriculture. They wanted to destroy subsistence agriculture that was done by the Africans, and by so doing now promoting the settlers' agriculture. So these were the motives that influenced the Land Apportionment Act of 1930. Let's go on and talk about the nature of the land that was given to the Africans. Number one, the Africans Africans, we see that the lands that they were given now, they were not spacious. They were given few spaces of land which were not adequate. So the lands that were given to the Africans, they were small in size. And we also see that on those lands, the Africans, they were overcrowded. The lands, we see that they had a high population density. There were so many Africans who were staying on those lands. Those lands, they were infertile, they were not fertile. Those lands, they were rocky, and those lands, again, they were ascending. The lands, where their areas were located, the areas received low rainfall patterns. So by so doing now, it meant that Africans, they were going to experience poverty from the lands that they were allocated. These lands, they were far away from the roads, they were far away from the rail lines, they were also far away from our markets. So by so doing now, what are we seeing? We are seeing that the Land Apportionment Act, it did not benefit the Africans. Instead, it impoverished, brought severe hardships to the Africans. They suffered because of the Land Apportionment Act of 1930. What about the settlers' land? Land that was given to the settlers. Number one, they bought large tracts of land. Their lands, they were spacious, despite the fact that there were few settlers in southern Rhodesia. Their lands, it had a low population density. The lands, we see that they were fertile, they were rich, and they also had good soil. So maybe saying that whenever they practiced the agriculture, they were going to get adequate yields because the lands, they were rich, they were having a good, fertile soil. The areas where they were located, they received high rainfall patterns. And you also see that the lands where they were located, they were close to the roads. They were close to the rail lines, they were also close to the markets. And those lands that they allocated themselves, they received high rainfall patterns. So we are seeing that the Land Apportionment Act, it was a blessing to the settlers, and it was a curse to the Africans. It brought more problems to the Africans. It brought challenges to the Africans. It brought a serious hardships that Africans were now experiencing on those reserves. Now, we want to move on and talk about the last aspect of the Land Apportionment Act, which are the results. What are the results of this Land Apportionment Act? Let's start with the political results. We see that land protests started to take place. The Africans, they started to protest. Why? It is because of severe problems that they were experiencing. These protests, they led to the formation of political parties such as the ANC. Later on, we talk about Zebra and Zanga protesting about the land that had been taken away from them. They also talk about the hatred between the Africans and the settlers. They now hated each other. Why? It is because the Africans were now saying, we want back our land, bring back our land. So we see a hatred developing between the Africans and also the whites. It led also to the second Chimorela. People, they rose in the 1950s, 1960s, claiming their land, advocating, clamoring, agitating for the return back of their land. So because of that now, we are seeing the second Chimorela taking place because of the Land Apportionment Act. So we can simply say that the Land Apportionment Act now, we see that it influenced, it necessitated the beginning of the second Chimorela. What were the economic results? We see that there was soil erosion. The soil became eroded. There was also overgrazing at the reserves. We also see that it led to kappa farming. Kappa is K-A-F-I-R. It is backyard farming. So many Africans, because land was not adequate, they started to do backyard farming so that they would supplement what they were going to get from their fields. So it also led to this farming. It was a term that was used by the whites to describe describe the agriculture that was done by the Africans. Then the social results, look at the social results: overcrowding, people were now overcrowded at the reserves. We also see that it led to landlessness. Africans became landless. Land was no longer adequate. Africans lost so much of what are of their land. Poverty, hunger, starvation. So many Africans were now experiencing poverty, hunger, and starvation, and death. Many Africans died because of poverty. So many Africans were now affected by different diseases. Why? Because of shortages of what are of food. It also led to poor yields. Africans were no longer getting adequate yields. So by so doing now, it contributed to a death. Then you also see that it also led to cheap labor. Labor in the sense that because of the problems that Africans were experiencing at the reserve, they went to seek for labor at the farms of the whites of the settlers. So by so doing now, we are seeing about the Land Apportionment Act. It disadvantaged the Africans. It exploited the Africans. It led the Africans to be left with no option or no choice but to abandon their areas and go and seek for employment at the farms of the settlers. So what are we saying? We are saying that the Land Apportionment Act of 1930, it was indeed a curse to the Africans. Thank you so much. It's Dr. Moso.